Cloud, sure. There we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome, Mark Pinto, the Adult Services Director here at Phoenixville Public Library. And I'd like to welcome you all to our Zoom program tonight featuring two local authors, Dolly Winston and Eileen Mitchell Solomon. This will be an empowering and interactive talk focusing on their real life partnership and connection. They've each written a couple of books, which they'll be talking about tonight, and they'll be engaging with all of you in some interactive questions and answers. So without further ado, I don't know who wants to go first. Dolly, you want to go first and start things
Yep.
off? All right.
Oh, hello everyone. Welcome and thank you so much for taking the time. I see some of you are in your car, and that is great. We just be careful being on the road, and we are just so happy to be here tonight. I thank you for this opportunity, Mark. And I feel really blessed tonight. It's a beautiful day out, and to have the privilege to come and tell you me and Eileen's story, which is a very, 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 very special story. Back in 2016, on August 27th, at Bethel Baptist Church, I had my first friendship luncheon. And the friendship luncheon was about getting women together and promoting a nonprofit that I started back in 2017. I officially, legally got it, but I started it a couple years prior. And Here to Connect is a nonprofit, and its focus is on empowering women and girls. So, in having the friendship luncheon, the idea was to bring women together so we can connect in accountability partners. Here to Connect is a nonprofit which focuses on accountability partners, where you find another woman or a young girl and you set goals. And the idea is you come together once a week, share an hour, set goals, commit for that 1 year by signing a contract, and then every week you meet and you concentrate on those goals. So at my very first luncheon, Eileen came. Now, I didn't know Eileen that well. I just knew that her son, Lorenzo, and Lorenzo's on here tonight. Thank you, Lorenzo, for coming out. Him and my grandson, Carlos Rich, they were best buddies and they hung out. And that was the way that I got familiar with Eileen, and I got to know her through her son and my grandson. They were really good friends. So she came, and she was really impressed with the luncheon. So she said to me, Dolly, she said, I would like to be your accountability partner. And I said, really? This was my first opportunity to really invite the opportunity of accountability partner to the community and to find someone to be my accountability partner. So Eileen agreed. So we agreed, and then we got together, and then we signed our contract, wrote our three goals. You're supposed to write three goals. And the one goal that we both wanted very much was to self-publish our own books. So we agreed to do that. And so we agreed to do that. And then we would meet every week. And we did on Friday night at 6 o'clock. That was the best time that worked for Eileen. And we were very, very diligent and focused on this one goal, that we definitely wanted to write our books. So we did. And we did it. Eileen was finished before me. She beat me. She got finished in February, and then I was finished in May. And then we self-published through Amazon. We were best-selling authors, and I'll let Eileen tell the rest of the story, because on her birthday, we went to California and we celebrated her birthday and celebrated our being best-selling authors on Amazon. So Eileen, I'll throw it over and I'll get more into the book part, but I want to give Eileen a chance to kind of talk about our story and how we met from her perspective.
So yes, thank you, Dolly. Yeah, so I was really impressed with the luncheon and becoming an accountable partner, because you get more done when you have someone accountable to it. We met every week for 1 hour, and we had our goals for the week. So we could not come to the table without completing our goals. And so when we first, we first had the common goal of writing a book. So that was great. And then we wanted to go down to California to a conference with Lisa Nichols. And we went to Speak and Write to Make Millions. And she talked about how, how to become a New York bestselling author and opportunities to speak. So, and it was a great time in California. That was the first time I've been there. And it's La Jolla, California. I was calling it La Jolly because it was a jet. But it was a great time down there. And so once I wrote my first book, it really mirrored my workshop, Empowered to Succeed workshop. And I told a lot of personal stories. I tell a lot of personal stories of how, when life kicks you down and you get back up, you make goals and you make smart goals and you, look for the good and keep moving forward. Martin Luther King had a quote, "Courage is the inner resolution to push forward despite the obstacles." And so that was one of my themes, and dare to explore your power to do more. And so I kept that on the tablet of my heart. Me and Dolly, since we had a contract to be accountable partners for 1 year, but as you can see, that was in 2016. It's 10 years now. And we're really, really loving it because out of that we became very, very close friends. We do things together. We're in business together. So it's a great time. It was a great time. And if anyone wants to write a book, if you've been putting it off, it's one time, just do it. And once you write the first one, it's just, oh, that was good. You just keep going. So yeah, that would be our story as becoming accountable partners.
Yeah, that really is. And it was, the one line that I have is when we bond with others, we improve our quality of life. And that very much can be said for Eileen and I's friendship because it is, and she's empowered to succeed. So what we do, we both wanted to empower women. When with her empowered to succeed and here to connect, the nonprofit, that's its purpose. The mission of that is to bring another woman on board and to find yourself working together, being accountable to set your goals and actually doing it, and you will. And it's so, I can't tell you the warm feeling that you get from being able to help somebody fulfill their dream, because it was always a dream. And me and Eileen always say, had we not been accountable partners, how long would it have taken us to get one book done? Letting on, I have two, working on three. She has three, working on four. So here we are, authors today. So I'll tell you a little bit about my first one. It's called Dolly Dishes It Out. I was 60. I was sassy, and I was still single, but I was waiting to be found, still waiting. So when I say still waiting, I am such, Dolly Dishes It Out was really, it was therapy for me. There was a lot of painful experience that I had in my life, and people often ask me, why didn't you get married yet? Why aren't you married? And in my book, I shared my life story. There was a lot of hurtful, painful experience that I had as a young girl. And the book, for me writing it, was very much therapy for me. And my thing for pain, my acronyms are prayer allows individuals new hope. I have faced a lot of pain in life. And along our life, we are going to. But I say when you experience pain, pray about it. Allow yourself to cry. Allow yourself to let it out. And then or individuals, you will have new hope because that's what God gives you. And my spiritual side of me, just, one of the most amazing things that someone has said to me is that the one thing that I know after reading your book, your faith. You're a faithful woman, you're a strong woman of God. And we were asked that question. Eileen and I, we went to a company that helped us. We paid a company to help us write our books. So we didn't go in blindsided, me and Eileen figuring it out. We paid money for somebody to show us how to write. And one of the first things they asked us to write down is, why do you want to write a book? That is very important. The number one question is, why do you want to write it? You got to be writing books for the right reason. With AI and everything going on, people just want to write books. But why? What's the purpose? And, we had to write it down. And then they said, if someone would see you at the airport and meet you and come up to you, what would you say? Now write that down. What would you want them to say to you? And then what would you say? And they said at that point, that was our first meeting. If you didn't have the right answer to look in the mirror at yourself to say why you were doing, if you want to write a book because you think you make a lot of money, you could be a best-selling author and be on New York's Times. That could happen. But really, for me, I'll speak for myself. I wrote the book because it was therapy. My very first book was therapy. I had dealt with so much pain in my life to really be open and free and share the hurt and pain. But you know what? I was a survivor. My real thing that I really still want to do, Eileen, and I talk about, is be in prison ministry, meaning like I want to go to prisons and I want to be able to share my story. And Eileen wants to share her story because you know what? I could be a victim just like they were. And trust me, women that are in jail, they've had something happen to their life. Something in their path has caused them to not deal with the pain. Eileen and I had God in our life. That's the one thing that we know. Our faith is strong. And because of God, we had mentors and the right people stirring us in the right direction. Because a lot of women, they have very hurtful, painful things happen to them. And instead of staying on the right track, they get involved with drugs. They, have problems with drinking. They let other men abuse them because they think that's reality. And it's not. It's not. So I hope if somebody had the opportunity to read my first book, they would understand that even though you may have faced pain in your life, you still could look to God and surround yourself with positive people in your life, and they'll help you through it all. But first, spiritually, it's my faith. It's my faith that got me through the hard, painful things that I had to deal with. So that's my first book. I'll let Eileen share a little bit of her Empower to Succeed. Your turn, Eileen.
So really, it really is the same, more of the same story. So I wrote my Empower to Succeed, Dare to Explore Your Power to Do More, because I had found myself suddenly a divorced mother of five, and I had to start her over. And being married, I had lost who I was. And so I had to start over. I had to make goals. I had to learn how to take care of my children as a single parent and starting from scratch. And everything I did, I had to search out because I literally started entirely over. I ended up living with my brother and trying to start from there. And I said, if I ever get back on my feet, I wanted to help someone else. And I wanted to help because all of the hurdles that I went through, I wanted to make it easier for someone else because everything everything that I went through and searching and doing all that, it was easy stuff. It was hard for me, but I wanted to make it easy for everybody else. So that really started me on my journey to write my book. Plus, I did a lot of self-healing. Now I started over. I didn't have a job, and I was really dealing with a lot of inner hurt and pain. Didn't have insurance, so I couldn't go to the therapist, but I could pick up a book. And so I realized that, like Dolly said, especially with the Lord, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I had 5 small children, they're 2 years apart, and I had to figure it out as a single parent. And so I bought books, Help I'm Raising Children Alone, by T.D. Jakes, The Root of Rejection, by Joyce Myers, Yesterday I Cried by Ayanna Van Zandt, and I started building myself up, saying I can do it and I can do it. And then, the tears turned to laughter and joy and forgiveness and love. And I wanted to spread that. And so that led me, like, if I could spread it, I learned how to make goals. I learned about, how to buy a house, how to fix my credit, and talking about goals, smart goals, um, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timetable. And I would do that every day. And then I would have my vision board. And one thing about what I love about we talk about businesses and when we talk about mission statements, but I looked at myself as a business. So what is my personal mission statement? Me, myself. So I gain my mission statement, and then you talk about people you recognize. So this is what I want to be. These are the character traits. These are the principles I want to stand by. So as I'm going through life, as I'm picking myself up, that personal mission statement acted as my guide, so I wouldn't veer off the path. And so yeah, that's why I started why I wrote my first book, just to give someone just a guide. And my personal stories are there because a lot of times when you're going through something, especially as a woman, you think you're the only one going through it. And then it's like, oh, it's not only me. I don't have to isolate myself. I am not alone. And people have walked that path also. So yeah, that's the story behind my first book.
Yeah. Okay, then we'll go to my second one. My turn. So we'll go to my second book. And my second book is it was painful too. It's called Dolly Dishes It Out Again. It's a series. How do you make how do you make others feel? Words matter. And let me just share that I was actually writing that book during the course of going through some very painful things. I had a very scare. I was on my fourth chapter when I was writing the book. I was on my fourth chapter, and I was actually in the chapter of Who Got Your Back when I had a very close call. I almost died. And my brother and my cousin was here. I used to cook Sunday dinners for them. And I had this very sharp pain and I couldn't walk. And they got me to the hospital. And I had twisted bowels and they had to do emergency surgery. I never even heard of twisted bowels. And if you have twisted bowels, you could die. It's like appendix, it could bust. So I was writing this book, and a part of where I had developed this saying, how do you make others feel? Words matter. And I had a t-shirt. I had the t-shirt actually before I had the book. And how I got, how do others make you feel? I have a booklet and it has obituaries in it. I think the last time I counted, it was like 200 obituaries. I have been to that many funerals in my life. And I keep that book. I remember one Sunday, I shared that booklet with my brother, Jay, and Neil. And they would come for Sunday dinner and I would cook. I love to cook. They knew I just, And so they one time looked at it and they went through it and they seen how many people in our life died under 50. And, and I got so deep on them. I said, when you go to a funeral, what is the one thing that matters? It's how you make other people feel. Because when people get up and they talk at your homecoming service, the words that they're going to use, it isn't going to be you got a big house, you got a master, a doctor's degree. They don't want to hear that. They never, if you ever go to a funeral, think of this when I share this with you. You're not thinking about that. You're going to get up there and you're going to say, when I was with Dolly, or you're going to tell stories about when you were with me or your loved person, and you're going to say how they made you feel. Because that is so deep. That is so deep of how that's your legacy. That I have shirts and hats in the book. It's your legacy of what you leave. My mentor, Don Cobbage, was my mentor. A lot of people know Don Cobbage. And he asked me, one of the only things he ever asked me to do, and I couldn't fulfill it for him, but I did put it in a book. He said, Dolly, my motto is love God, love people, nothing else matters. And he told me to put it on a t-shirt. And because of all the things that can get in the way when someone dies, there was no physical contract, he died before all that. But I was not able to pull off the t-shirt and sell the t-shirts like he wanted me to. So what I did is I dedicated that book to him because he's right. Love God, love people. Nothing else matters. But what does matter is how you make other people feel. And words matter. And so the chapters in that book is boundaries. It's all about people skills. The one thing somebody says, what kind of skills? What do you think you're good at? I say people. That's my skill set. That's what I know. I can walk in a room and tonight I met so many nice people because all you got to do is smile, be authentic, be real, show people, the God in me. I want people to see that what's special about this woman, what makes her happy. I like your spirit, somebody said to me tonight. I don't need an award. I don't need a trophy. Just somebody say to me, I like your spirit. You're a nice lady. They don't even know you. They get to know you for a couple minutes and then you leave and they say, oh, I like you. I want to reconnect with you. That is what we should be walking around every day, trying to connect with people and have that be something that somebody's going to say about you. But the chapters, boundaries, betrayal. I say you're going to be betrayed, not by enemies, honey, by people you love. I found it out. People that you love will hurt you, but then you have to set boundaries. Then I'm always with a new project. You have projects and things that you're doing. You have a company. You got to build a team. You got to know who's going to be on your team. And then guess what? You got to know who got your back because the same people on your team, they ain't got your back. You think they should, but not necessarily because when you build a team, you got to have all kinds of skill sets. So guess what? You have to work with them. So you have to build that team. And then the last chapter is 5 chapters, empowerment and transformation, because in your lifetime, you need to be empowered and you're transforming. I'm transforming all the time. Certain things happen in my life, pain comes, and every time pain, I'm starting to see the L as, look, these are lessons, not loss, lessons that God keeps giving me to teach me and how to love people and forgive people. Because, I say about the betrayal, you got to forgive people for you so that you don't keep that harboring in your heart. Somebody hurt you, pray about it. Allow yourself to go through what you need and just know that there's new hope. God has a lesson in that for you. There's a lesson. And when we get hurt sometimes, we just get all sour and we want to get angry and all that is bad for your health. I know about being stressful. Every time I had a medical issue, you know what it was due to? The stress the stress that I was under. And so for me, I don't allow myself to be, I pray, I allow myself to cry, go through it, do whatever I need to do, because you know what? I know that there's a new path for me. There is new hope for me. So for me, that's where I am with my life now, moving forward. And you know, my new book, oh God. She's on her journey, my journey back to me. Sometimes we get so excited about other things, we forget about ourselves. So we have to go back to ourselves to love on ourselves. And we don't realize that until we experience pain. Pain will make you transform yourself. That's what it does for you. But you know the best part in that book I love? I give Steve Harvey all the credit for this because he talks about, you know, I have in it's in the last chapter, the fifth chapter, it talks about how to assess people in your life. Write all the people in your life, write them down on a piece of paper. And then when you write them down, you look about them, it's really a moment of really settling with yourself and understanding people and who in your life and how they make you feel. And then you look and you rate them energy from 1 to 5. And if they giving you a 5, they need to be out of your list. And there's a list. Steve says your VIP list, that's the people you're close to. Your general list, you got to work with people. You know, you got to work with people. They're in your life. And then you're the family member that you just can't get along with, but they're in your life. So you just put them up in the balcony. They can't touch you. So sometimes I find myself taking somebody that might have been on the VIP list. I got to move them over to, you know, just a general list because, you know, they're just in my life. But then sometimes I just kick them all the way up to the curb and say, you know what? I love them, but they got to be up here in the back because they can't touch this, because they can't touch the energy that I need to keep moving forward. And when we need to move forward, sometimes we have to release people out of your life because the energy, you talk to somebody on the phone and you think, God, what kind of energy did I get from talking to that person? Man, they're making me depressed. All they do is complain. You know, they're not giving me the excitement and the joy that I need. And I assess that. I'm using my own book for my own strategy of how I'm moving forward in life because I've been so devastated and hurt by people. And so now my life is so much calmer and it's so much peaceful because I use that list and I put people in those categories and I assess the people in my life because you know what? I'm going to be 68 years old. I don't have time to waste with people stealing my energy. And I love people and I just know that it's so important. You don't realize that medically I'm telling you, people will drain you and they will suck everything out of you if you let them. So, with that being said, I say that book is so powerful to me. One of the things that I want to do, and I had my first opportunity, I went to Chestnut Hill School and I spoke to college kids. And let me tell you, I had the professor saying to me after that speech, I know where some of my people going to be up in the balcony, you know, because they're just not good for me and I need to keep them away from me. So I work with them, but I just have to keep them up in the balcony because they're just not giving this the energy. I did an exercise with them and I told them to write the names down and then, you know, put down beside each person's name what kind of energy they give you. And when you do that little assessment of people in your life, you'll see. If nobody tells you to do that, you just go through life you don't even realize what people are stealing from you. They're stealing your joy. You know, people say that, but what does that really mean? That means that you would have to do that little exercise to figure that out because you're not thinking about it. But if you do it, it's deep. And they always tell you, write it down. Write down everybody in your life and then examine assess where they stand. What kind of energy 1 to 5, what are they giving me? Because if it's not 1, 2, or 3, then you know what? You got to really put them up in the balcony, man. They need to be far away from you. So with that, I'll let Eileen because I love her second book. Her second book, it's been so helpful and it's been a blessing to me. So Eileen, please share your second book with everybody. You're not on. You're muted.
Okay, I got it. This is actually I wrote my second book was Paving Your Path. Empowered to Succeed and Paving Your Path. And then my third book
Oh, what's the
was,
third one?
yeah. So my third book is Becoming the Voice You Need. And so from inner critic to inner coach. And so like Dolly was talking about, you know, words matter. My book talks about what you say to yourself matters. And we're talking about we know that inner critic, oh, that wasn't good enough, or you could have did this, or that was stupid. And we're criticizing ourselves. And sometimes we're, like they say, we are our own worst critic. So my book, Becoming the Voice You Need, walks you from the inner critic to the inner coach. So we replace those words because what happens is some of these voices, when you think about it, these are voices that we didn't choose. We never chose them. It may have been handed to us by a parent or by a teacher or by a caregiver. And sometimes that voice is actually running our life because we subconsciously follow it without even paying attention. Like, oh, I can't go there because I'm scared. But why are you scared? I have a story when I was younger. I was terrified of getting on a plane. Never been on a plane, but was terrified of getting on a plane. Oh, if I get on a plane, it's going to crash. Oh my God. That whole thing. I was terrified growing up. I never been on a plane, but it was in a voice that I inherited from my parent, because she was terrified of getting on a plane. And it's in a voice that she inherited. And so there's a lot of things like you're not good enough. You're not smart enough. And you'll start adopting that voice and then not even trying because you already canceled yourself out. You're not pretty enough. You're too big. You're too small. You're too short. You're tall. Everything. So becoming the voice you need is quieting that inner critic and questioning it. Like, where did you come? Where did that thought come from? Because we don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are and how we have been programmed to see it. So it's our view of reality is filtered through everything, our subconscious, our subcultures, and everything. And so we wanted to get this book, my book, we use my lady's name, her name is Maya. So she walks through, you know, identifying your inner critic. And so she goes back and say, okay, when did that voice take over? When did I first start criticizing myself? What happened? And then once she identified that voice, question it. Don't try that. You're going to fail. Question it. But what if I don't fail? What if you don't fail? What if you succeed? And then it's a matter of identifying what you're saying to yourself and then exposing the lies. Lisa Nichols, Lisa Nichols did a um a exercise with us down there, and it was called Exposing the Lies. So you would literally sit and write in pencil no judgment, everything you thought, every bad thought you may have had about yourself. Write it down. And then look at that and say, is that really true? Like you're always going to lose. And say, no, I'm a winner. I can do all things. So, and you keep doing that. You can find out where the critic shows up in your life. And there are, when I said in the beginning, where it can come from your first caregiver, your teacher, or someone that was with you at a very young age, at a very young age. So if you had a caregiver who was consistently warm and responsive to you, you're likely that inner voice is going to be warm and responsive. If you had a caregiver that was critical and demanding, then your inner voice may sound you had to do everything perfect. It may be harsh, like you had to do everything perfect. And if you didn't do it, you'll start beating yourself up in your head. And then if it was inconsistent, if you had a caregiver that was inconsistent and unpredictable, then you'll switch from extremes. You could be really happy at one moment, really upset. You can go from, like my daughter said, from 0 to 100. And then if you had someone that was a caregiver that was absent or neglectful, your inner voice will feel like you'll feel abandoned, or you'll feel lonely and stuff like that. And so that's what my book does. It walks you through um um questioning the inner voice, and then the identifying those harsh words, and then reprogramming your brain, because your brain can be reprogrammed at any time. It's called neuroplasticity. So at any time you can rewire your brain. You don't always have to, it doesn't always have to be seeing the glass half empty. It's, if you choose it daily, it's a choice. You have to choose daily when you wake up. Today, I choose to be joyful. Today, I choose to be calm. Today, I choose to be steady. And then if you choose it daily, it's hard at first. I'm not saying you're going to wake up tomorrow and say, hey, my inner voice changed and everything's like this. I am perfect. I will not fail today. I am wonderful, awesome, beautiful, and I can do everything I set my mind to. It's a work. It's a work. Yes, you're wonderful. You're wonderfully made, and you can do all things you set your mind to, but it's a work. So you have a plan in place. And in my book, it tells you when the work gets hard, then you put this plan in place. You be more proactive, like, okay, I feel off center. Let me take a moment, do some breathing, and then come back and say, okay, I'm ready. And then we talk about just saying letters, giving letters to the inner critic. That inner critic, literally, you may have need that inner critic at a time, because you could have been in survival mode and it was just there to protect you, but you don't need it anymore. And then you go to the coach and you wake up and you say, yes, today may be hard, but I'm built for this. I'm built for this. And every day is a gift that I can walk in, a gift that I can do what I desire to do. One moment at a time, one voice at a time. And then you thank your inner coach. Write a letter to your inner coach. Thank you. And then, like Dolly said, we always share the work. As you grow, bring people along with you, because you're not alone. You're not the only one. And there's someone that just needs your voice. And my motto is, when I'm talking to someone, I want them to feel better when I leave than when I came. So that is my my book, and becoming the voice you need. It's amazing. I have a workshop coming up. I'm going to do it, and we're going to walk through the 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 ways that you can go from inner critic to inner coach. So,
Yeah.
Mark, I don't know if we're at our time.
No. Can you talk more about the workshop? When is that? Where is that going to be?
And so right now we're still in the process. I'm going to send out a link and get some signups. I want to at least get at least 10 people signed up before I start the workshop. And it's basically, doing exercises, and then really, and it's a personal thing. When you sit down and you identify those voices, that the inner critic that that you constantly hear, and really there's always that one main one that you hear every day, like, oh, that was dumb, or just things that you say, because your body and your emotions respond to what you say. If you're saying, oh my God, I'm going to have a bad day, or this is the bad day, your day is going to get worse, because now your body responding, now you're on that I like to say vibration of your day, just going from waking up being bad to getting, oh man, I stumped my toe when I got out the bed. Oh man, I ran down the stairs. Oh man, I forgot my keys. Oh, this day sucks. And it's like 8 o'clock in the morning. And then it just goes on. So it teaches, like, wait a minute, let's reprogram it. It did happen. Yes, it hurt when I stubbed my toe. But then it doesn't have to happen. And then you think about what you bring to the world, because we are fearfully and wonderfully made, and we have purpose, and we don't know who we're going to meet, and we're on assignment. We don't know who we're going to meet, what a smile or a hug or a kind word can do for someone else. And so we go through that and be very aware of the people around us, especially now, because we're all just dealing with trauma right now, and so we need some hope in this world. So yes, it's a 4-week workshop. I will send you the link, and then we can see if we can get some signups. But I would like to do it. I have to have at least 10 to start.
Well, I want to share a motto that I use every day. Every day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And after today, I'm on my way. And that, saying that, not do you say it, is when you feel it. It was good when I first learned it, but now I feel it. And then I say, I want to be the reason somebody smiles today. And when I go out with that frame of mind after a prayer, it's like, think about that every day, in every way. I'm getting better and better. And after today, I'm on my way. And I want to be the reason someone smiles today. What could that do for your energy level? One thing I learned a long time ago, I went to this workshop, and this guy taught, it was about stress, how to deal with stress. Now listen to this. He said, as a doctor, you're going to listen because he says he's a doctor, right? He said, think of the amount of stress that you're allowed to have before the cup runs over. He said, he showed us an 8-ounce cup. And he said, when you get through the day, like Eileen was giving you examples, you get out, you fall out of bed, you go on the road, somebody's ignorant to you on the road. Before you get to work, you might be 4 ounces already. Then things happen to you during the day at work. By the time you get home, and this is why people say their family gets it all. You're at 8 ounces, and that's your level that you're allowed to have before you go over. By the time you go to bed at night, you might have 12 ounces of stress. So when you start thinking, how do I deal with stress? I learned how to deal with stress through that workshop. So I kept thinking, I'm not going to let nobody stress me out because I think about don't sweat the small stuff. If you ever, that's a great book to read because that's what people do. You know, road rage is very, very dangerous. You can be on a small street in our little town. My mom lives on Dayton Street. She's 88 years old. So when I park, I say, Mommy, please be out front. Because when I'm out there, cars can't get around. Is she's on 113 and they scream at me, they F you, move the F over, park. Why don't you park? And all of that because they don't have the patience. And I'm thinking, my mom can't walk that fast. She's trying to walk to the car to get in, and there's no parking space on her block for me to park. And people get mad about that. They'll curse you. I can't. I said, Mom, I can't tell you every time I come up and I try. So I tell her I park in the back where she has a garage. She has to park. I mean, she has to walk a long way up to through her yard, and she doesn't like to do it. So I struggle with my mom because she doesn't want to walk up the long yard, but then I have to deal with to make her happy. I have to deal with people cursing and being rude to me because I'm sitting there in my car waiting for my mom to come out. That's so stressful to me. And that is stress people are giving me that, and it's in the nighttime. You know, I take my mom to bingo on a Tuesday night. She loves a bingo. And I'm thinking to myself, Mom, please be ready. I'll call you. Then she doesn't answer the phone. So she can be out there. So that's the kind of stress that we're dealing with. You think, you know, how can I deal with that better? I keep saying to myself, next Tuesday, I'm going to get better because every Tuesday I'm up against it. But we have to think about what stresses us. See, because that's a lot in that inner critic thing, like Eileen's teaching us. And I think about those kinds of things when I read her book because I'm a person, I'm very sensitive, and I have allowed stress in my past life before I learned all of these tools that I could use to help myself. So when I get stressful about things, which I do, I try to learn and talk to my inner critic and myself, Dolly. It's, you know, just, there's nowhere to park. What can you do? Just sit here and pray until your mom comes out. There's not, that's a situation where you're stressed about other people doing things to you, but you got to learn how to deal with what's your triggers, what gets you upset. And so I loved her book. I couldn't wait until she released it. I mean, we went over it together and she would give me little examples. There's a lot of good stories she has in that book and things that she, learned. And it really does make you think what type of person you become. And when you really, I mean, this book is really, really good. I think, being in elementary schools and developing these these things that you share in your head, then that's what causes young kids because when they're told, you're not good looking or you're too short or that carries. And people don't, and teachers and coaches, they have a strong impact on children's life, and they don't know that the things that they may say, there you go with words matter, how that's going to affect a child, whether he's going to be a good basketball player. You're too short. You can't be. You know how many young professional guys have been told you're too short, you're not going to make the pros, and you see a lot of them make it, and they'll tell you that. They'll say that to you, that they were told they were too short. But guess what? That what they got inside them, somebody was telling them that they could. And sometimes you do. You have to really push off those negative things that are said to you to survive in life. And there's a lot of mental health. I mean, mental health is probably the biggest crisis. Working for nonprofit and understanding funding, grant writing and trying to get money to really run your nonprofit. It's almost like the mental health is the number one issue that foundations are looking to support because the pandemic really did it to us all. It's everybody has mental health. If you don't, I don't know where you were when the pandemic was happening. The pandemic did something to everyone. And I think we're all soul searching, we're transforming into different people. And we just, life in itself, and I don't want to get into politics, but as things are going on in life, the things that we have to teach our children and, being together and trying to help each other in our communities. It's back to the village raising the children because we have to. We have to try to help each other. And that's what's so important about, being an author, and trying to write stories. It's really, you want to touch somebody's life. I mean, for me, that question still remains in my head. Why do you want to write a book? What does being an author to you mean? It means that I hope when somebody has the opportunity to read one of my books, that they'll be touched and moved, and it could be a change maker for them. That's something that I experienced, something that I shared, because you know what? I'm still here. I'm still being blessed, and I'm still living a life that is meaningful. So, don't let pain and don't let other people, like Eileen saying, because those other people really put stuff in your head for you to think a certain way. And sometimes it comes from our loved ones. Sometimes it does come from, your family that will say you're too thin or you don't look right or, make fun of you, and they don't understand the power of those words and using them to make you not lift you up, but make fun of you. It's a mean thing to do to people. And, I just do not support when I hear somebody or see somebody doing something like that. I sometimes have to say something because what I've experienced for myself, what you've experienced for yourself, you don't want other people to hurt. When you hurt, people say, why are you so sensitive? I'm sensitive because I've been hurt a lot in my life and I don't want to see anybody else hurt. That's why I would never do anything intentionally to try to hurt somebody. I know what pain feels like, and it doesn't feel good. And you can be down. And a lot of people don't have resources and they don't have survival skills to be able to help them survive through the pain that they're getting through. So I just hope that in any way that I can, I hope my books would touch somebody's heart and they would be changed based on something that they heard and experienced from reading my book. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, Mark. I don't know what time we have now, but I'd like to have some questions.
Got a few more minutes, but thank both of you. My goodness, you've just been, as Lonnie in his comment has put it, so inspirational tonight. You've spoken so much truth, things that should be said and people need to hear right now. I relate personally to much of what both of you have said tonight. I'm sure that's the same way for those of you on with us tonight. But Lonnie is asking something practical here. How long did it take you to finish writing your first books, each of you? And did you have a schedule to ensure you were making progress and writing your chapters timely?
I'll go first. I, I actually took 11 days off of work. I was still working when I wrote my first book. I used to do it every Thanksgiving time because I used to make pies and and 11 days I actually wrote it. 11 days I laid in my bedroom and cried. I think I cried every day. My book was very painful. And at the end, there was some good stuff. But in the beginning of the book, there was some healing for me that I had to do. And so really with Eileen meeting every week, we were timely because that's the one thing about accountability partner. So Lonnie, I would suggest that you get an accountable partner because this works. Because when you meet somebody every week, Eileen or I wasn't going to come to the table. We would make sure, what chapter are you on? How far are you on? She beat me on the deadline because I struggled and she was able to get hers done in February, and I had too many bumps. I had an editor, and then they quit on me, so that I had to get a new one, so that messed me up. So she was able to get further along because I came into a roadblock that I had to address and get a new editor. So,
Mhm.
Eileen.
Yeah, so what the way I wrote my book, it did take about, I want to say about 6 months. And the way I want, the way I approach my book is, what did I want someone to walk away feeling, and some action steps that they can take. All my books are interactive. So I have a place where you can write and you can reflect. And so the main part, which Dolly was saying, it was really painful because now I had my points that I wanted my reader to hit on, but I wanted them to really, when I did my personal stories that related to that particular point. And so when you start writing, I wrote all my personal stories down first. I just wrote just things that are happened. Like when I went to buy my house, I talked about the steps to buying a house, but my house, my rental had caught on fire. And I was homeless for a little while because um the fire department said that we couldn't live there. So that part I had to write down, but it launched me to buy in my house, and then what it takes. So yes, it took about 6 months, and just writing those stories, good, and there's some good and bad, but I don't want to say bad experiences, because pain is growth.
Hmm.
So learning, once you learn, you know. So yeah, to say it's about 6 months.
Well, let me back up a little bit because I don't want to leave anybody with the expectations and to know why it took me 11 days. I've been writing for 20 years. I write a love
That's
letter.
fast.
I write a love letter. It's my love letter to Jesus. I say, I start out every morning, good morning, Father, friend, and judge. And then I write to God my prayers. And so everything in my life was already written.
Yes.
So when I was writing, I had already had my material. It was
Mhm.
kind of like putting it, that's all I did for 11 days. And I really put it together based on it was already there. I had already written my book. The hardest part for me was the editing the book. I had written it, in my own little writing style, but that wasn't, couldn't be published. So that's why it took me 11 days to write it, but it took longer to edit it to get
Yeah.
it into those 8 chapters. So it was kind of like writing it. You could just sit there and write every day and write every day and write every day and put it together. But it's not going to take, don't think that it takes 11 days because Eileen's is more realistic in saying how long it takes to write a book. But for me, I had been writing. I had been
Yes.
writing. That
Yeah,
was the
you had been
difference.
right. No, you had
Yeah, yeah,
already, you just was arranging the material that you already
yeah,
had. I had to say, okay, let me write this down.
yeah,
But
yeah.
that was your lifestyle.
Yeah, it was my lifestyle writing. So but it's a healthy thing. I share that with anybody about, journaling. And people call it journaling. I call it writing my love letter to Jesus because I'm telling him every day what I need, what I feel, and writing my what goes on in my life. So knowing that he's my father, he's my friend, and no one can judge me. I don't let other people in life judge what I do because the judge we're all going to need is him. When we get to
Yeah.
the end of our road, he will be the master in saying where you're going to go. So for me, I'm getting in those pearly gates, okay? Because
Amen.
I want him to say, "Well done, good and faithful servant you have been." And guess
Yes.
what? When you can go back when you're living your life every day, I can go back yesterday, last week, last month. I can see where I am, what I'm feeling, what kind of spirit I had in the day, what was going on, what was I thinking. I tell God everything. I don't hide God from even when I do wrong. I say, Lord, please forgive me. I did such and such. I shouldn't have did that today. I'm not perfect. I'm not a saint, but when I do, I go to my God and he forgives me. So when you have that, let him be your judge. Don't let other people tell you, because other people got to go to the same God you go to.
They do. They do.
So we serve different gods, but everybody got to go to their God. Okay, because that's who's judging you. You can't judge me, I can't judge you. Judge,
Amen.
I learned this a long time ago. If you judge somebody, you can't help nobody.
Amen.
You can't pass judgment on a person because you are not perfect yourself. Look deep within yourself. Look in the mirror. I just did that assignment. It was so deep. We did an exercise. Look in the mirror at yourself for 2 minutes. What do you see? Write it down. And I did that. And you know what? That was powerful. When you can look in the mirror, see yourself, look for 2 minutes, and then write down, what do I see? Because that change that you need to make is between you and God. Because only He can change it. Nobody else can. So that mirror exercise is deep. I did it for the first time. I had never done it before, but I went to this class and they told us to do that. And I was like, that's pretty powerful. Okay, I'll share that. I'm going to share. When I get something good, I'm going to share it. I'm going to let you know you got to do this. Okay, I know, Mark. I know we're probably out of time now.
Yeah, we need to wrap up, but any questions, comments from anyone on Zoom, feel free to unmute if you'd like, or you can type in the chat.
Hello. I just wanted to say I enjoyed this so much. And we all have things, like she said, from the past. And I can just remember how the nuns hated my handwriting. And I'm very sensitive about it to this day.
Yeah.
So I'm going to rethink that, Eileen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Marina says, thank you, very deep and inspiring. Shani, thanks, ladies, for all your wisdom and encouragement. Yeah, it's been great. Thank you both for sharing tonight.
You're
It's been
welcome.
wonderful to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
Sure
everyone.
thing.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We
Guys.
truly appreciate you.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good luck to you both. And thanks, everyone, for joining us on Zoom tonight. Take care and good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
No, thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.